Chetan Seth is with us, APAC Equity Strategist at Nomura. Chetan, good morning. Great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. If you want to start with this comment, the hearing, Scott Bessent is an important appointee, right? Treasury Secretary. Top post will weigh in on a variety of things. What did you make of the hearing, and anything we can learn from what he said?
Well, not much. I mean, as you rightly said, I mean, he came across as a relative hawkish guy. But, in the end, it's going to be Trump who's going to decide. And the reality is that we just don't know. We do have views. We have some baseline views, but we just don't know around the timing, extent, and sequencing of some of these flagship Trump policies. And for Asia, I think, including India, I would say the number one, uncertainties around the trade and literally the trade policies and tariff policies. So remains to be seen. I think the next week is going to be quite important. I think there'll be a lot of focus on what Trump has to say. Interestingly, the US markets are down. So I think, Tuesday morning, we might be a bit, lacking direction.
Chetan, so finally, hi, morning, great to have you on the show. So finally, we'll at least get over this event, right? And then we'll see whether he does those, many tariff announcements or the many executive orders immediately in the first 24 to 36 hours or not. So it's going to be an action-packed week. But really, I just want to broaden this out. The markets have been on a roller coaster, right, over the last 2 months, especially markets like India, markets in the Asia region particularly. Because it's been this great to make America great again trade, the go-home trade. Do you think that trade has somewhat peaked now that finally the event is going to be behind us? Or do you think, the uncertain patch is just going to continue over the next couple of perhaps weeks?
So, I don't think so. We will get through this uncertainty next week. See, we've got two scenarios. Either Trump says something about tariffs. Then we also don't know whether he's going to talk about 10%, 15%. I mean, he's spoken about universal 10% tariffs across the board. He's also spoken about 60% on China. So my sense is, at least our sense is, that this uncertainty at least will be the showstopper, at least for Q1 and potentially Q2. But I do think that sometime, maybe Q1, Q2, we'll reach the stage of peak pessimism. When the market will have much greater clarity on the direction of tariffs, we'll probably have peak dollar, peak bond yields. And I think that is when we can be a bit more constructive on Asia, including India.
Hi, Chetan. Good morning and good to see you. And Chetan, so, I mean, you don't believe that the dollar index has still peaked out? You think it has more to go? Because that's the big fear, right? Whether it could go out or back, which then all bets are off with regard to emerging markets.
Well, as a house, we think, generally the theme for Q1 and potentially even Q2 is going to be strong dollar. Of course, we can have these, false rallies and false corrections. Yesterday, one interesting thing, which I didn't see your anchors speak about, was we also had some dovish comments from Waller, and he's quite important now. He's generally a dovish guy. We think that, look, if you have a scenario where US puts tariffs, I mean, there's going to be some risk off as well. I mean, that would be another factor for the dollar to go higher. I mean, there could also be concerns around inflation in the US. I know we got a soft CPI print, but generally as a house, Nomura is expecting that in the baseline, the impact of some of these tariffs could lead to an 80 bips move higher in inflation. Of course, the uncertainty there is whether these tariffs will be staggered or there'll be one-time impact. I think that remains to be seen. But yeah, the short answer is we are expecting, dollar strength to continue. Bond yields will probably stay elevated, and that means there's going to be some pressure on Asia FX, and that will have its own negative impact on emerging markets, including Asia and including India.
No, but Chetan, Nomura's point you're saying is that there could be an 80 basis points move higher in US inflation on these tariffs. What I was trying to understand is that if the tariffs are what he's been saying all along, right? So that the market's primed for 10% to 60%. If the tariffs are indeed what he's been saying, do you still see a further rise in the US dollar?
We do see, and we do expect. And let me give you just one simple data point. If you look at 2018-2019 trade war, and we've actually looked at for equities, not necessarily for dollar. I don't look at like DXY the way my FX strategists will look at. There were at least 5 or 6 times Trump back then either threatened tariffs on China or there was an actual announcement. And interestingly, all this time, despite the market saying that tariffs are well expected, there was always this knee-jerk negative reaction. So if Trump sticks to his word and we do get these tariffs or even threat of tariffs, I suspect you will still see a reaction in the market. So I think it's still feels a bit too early to conclude that dollar has peaked and bond yields have peaked. So I think there's probably another quarter where I think there'll be just a lot of volatility. And I don't expect investors specifically to go gung-ho over equities, at least Asia or emerging markets.
Sorry, just one thing. As last night we heard that sensitivity being put out, Scott Bessent saying that 10% tariffs will lead to 4% appreciation. So that's the sensitivity, right? 0.4. What does that mean for the CNY, which is a big trading partner for the US? I mean, that should mean big depreciation. It's important here because the rupee is joined at the hip with the CNY.
Well, so one thing in general, well, I don't have the sensitivity, nor we've calculated it, but let me just say a couple of things that, look, if the aim is towards China as far as these tariffs is concerned, you'd expect renminbi to be weaker, right? And in fact, as a house, we expect normally, or generally speaking, the pressure would be on renminbi, right? And as that happens, some of the other Asia FX pairs will also get impacted. I think India would probably to a lesser extent, but there could be some other currencies which could be impacted, right? As I said earlier, if you have a scenario where global investors are worried about or concerned about weaker domestic Asia FX, whether it's renminbi or rupee, then that's another incremental negative factor for Asia equities. I mean, we didn't speak about it, but I just say that, look, I think near term we have to be cautious. I mean, we are generally cautious. Our view is maybe Q2, middle of 2025, maybe that's when things stabilize once we reach this peak pessimism. And I think we are not there. I mean, I don't think so. We are clear at the stage of peak pessimism. We still haven't seen what sort of policies Trump will embark on.
Very quickly, Chetan, before we let you go, but you expect India to outperform from the emerging market basket? Plenty of uncertainties, but will India outperform?
Yeah. Well, so absolute, if you look at the absolute level, I mean, our India team has just put out a big outlook report a couple of days ago. They're not expecting much upside. From my vantage point, I look at 10 different Asia markets. We have an overweight, and I still feel that India's relative case is still quite strong. And you literally go country by country in Asia. It's not easy to paint a very positive outlook for the other countries. You look at Korea, politics, fundamentals. You look at China, still very questionable despite valuations. Taiwan is great. AI is fantastic team, but this market has done incredibly well. So it's not clear also whether those gains will sustain. And Southeast Asia has a problem from currencies and global macro cross currents. So, in that kind of context, I think India still looks okay. But yes, I think near term we have a problem. And I think India equity, just like EMs and Asia, will probably struggle so long as we have this rhetoric of tariffs or trade uncertainty from the US.
Okay, all right, Chetan, appreciate you joining in and giving us those views. We'd like to re-invite you in the next couple of weeks when we get some clarity coming in from Trump and his policies, and then we could have a more elaborate chat. But thanks for joining in, wishing you a good day ahead and looking forward to chatting up with you soon.